One of the reasons why people are convinced, why many of these experts are convinced that this situation is one which is increasingly difficult to solve is because of the fact that we were there once before. The right course of action is to make preparations as quickly as possible to bring our people home. It does not mean as soon as order is restored to Haiti. It doesn't mean as soon as democracy is flourishing in Haiti. It doesn't mean as soon as we have established a viable nation in Haiti. As soon as possible means as soon as we can get out of Haiti without losing any American lives. Now, there may be different interpretations of this resolution on the other side, but it is my view, and I want to make it clear, and I think the majority of the American people's view, that as soon as possible means as soon as possible, exactly what those words state. The Haitians were to police themselves, but the cooperation that was to prevent mission creep has not materialized, and U.S. troops have assumed a greater and greater responsibility for policing Haiti. On CNN what they are doing. Day by day, their mission expands. American military personnel have been tasked with preventing looting, stopping Haitian-on-Haitian violence, protecting private property, and arresting attachés.
There are those who today argue for a hasty withdrawal from Iraq. Some would withdraw regardless of the consequences. Others say that we can withdraw now and then return if trouble starts again. What they're really proposing, if they mean what they say, is a policy of withdraw and reinvade. For if we withdraw hastily and irresponsibly, we will guarantee that trouble will come immediately. Our allies, Arab countries, and the UN, and the Iraqis themselves will not step up to their responsibilities if we recklessly retreat. I can hardly imagine a more imprudent and dangerous course. Over the past year, the counterinsurgency strategy of General Petraeus has been based on the premise that establishing greater security in Iraq is indispensable to advancing political reconciliation and economic reconstruction, to making diplomatic progress in the region, and to preparing the Iraqi military to assume its responsibilities to defend the sovereignty of Iraq and the authority of its elected government. Should the United States withdraw from Iraq before that level of security is established, those goals will be infinitely harder, if not impossible, to attain. Al-Qaeda in Iraq will proclaim victory and increase its efforts to provoke sectarian tensions in Iraq into a full-scale civil war that could descend into genocide and destabilize the entire Middle East. Iraq would be a failed state that could become a haven for terrorists to train and plan their operations. Iran's influence in Iraq, especially southern Iraq, and throughout the region would increase substantially and encourage other countries to seek accommodation with Tehran at the expense of our interests. These likely consequences of America's failure in Iraq would almost certainly require us to return to Iraq or draw us into a wider and far costlier war. The American people deserve the truth from their leaders. They deserve a candid assessment of the progress we have managed to make in the last year in preventing the worst from happening in Iraq, of the very serious difficulties that remain, and of the grave consequences of a hasty, reckless, and irresponsible withdrawal. I don't want to keep our troops in Iraq a minute longer than necessary to secure our interests there. Our goal is an Iraq that can stand on its own as a democratic ally and a responsible force for peace in its neighborhood. Our goal is an Iraq that no longer needs American troops. And I believe we can achieve that goal perhaps sooner than many imagine. But I do not believe that anyone should make promises as a candidate for president that they cannot keep if elected. To promise a withdrawal of our forces from Iraq, regardless of the calamitous consequences to the Iraqi people, our most vital interests, and the future of the Middle East, is a height of irresponsibility. It is a failure of leadership. I know the pain war causes. I understand the frustration caused by our mistakes in this war. And I regret sincerely the additional sacrifices imposed on the brave Americans who defend us. But I also know the toll of a lost war takes on an army and on our country's security. By giving General Petraeus and the men and women he has the honor to command the time and support necessary to succeed in Iraq, we have before us a hard road, but it is the right road, and it is necessary and just.